Hello everyone, James Williams, Director of Programs with MEF. What an absolute fantastic panel that was. So well done, Charlie, and speakers. Now, next up, we have a speaker who I personally know very well, a very, very active member of the MEF community, working with a company called imimobile, now part of WebEx. So they were purchased by Cisco ultimately. Welcoming to the stage now, Mr. Ramy Riad.
Hey James, how are you?
Hello. Do you know what? For a change, we're not talking about commercial models.
Yes, that's definitely a big change.
It is. Mr. Andy Jones mentioned that, but no doubt we will be talking about that very, very soon again in a future working group. But a very warm welcome to this event. Nice to have you.
Thanks, James. You too.
No problem. So you're going to be talking about the important role rich messaging has in customer experience transformation. So I'll leave it to you to take the show away. All the best. Enjoy.
Thanks, James. I'll share my screen right now. Hopefully this works. Perfect. So really quick today, I just want to touch on an important topic for the conversation, which is how rich messaging is playing a very important role in the transformation of the customer experience that we're experiencing today. And really, the talking points for today are focused around four main points: a shift in the customer expectations, what's the current movement in the CX landscape, and then the explosion of rich messaging channels that we're seeing around us. And then the final point is how to get started and build a connected customer journey for your enterprise. Like James mentioned, we are imimobile. We've been recently acquired by WebEx, so we're now a part of WebEx. And our focus is really on cloud communication software and our CPaaS platforms that offer enterprises the ability to communicate and engage with their customers. We have connections to a lot of operator partners and a lot of the channels that we're going to talk about today. So first thing really is that we're seeing a big shift in the customer's expectation. And the shift is really from a business-owned conversation. It's shifting more towards the customer preferred. The customer is in control. They want to have the conversation at their own pace, at their own time. We're seeing a big shift from manual customer service to a lot of automated, where a lot of the functions are handled by inside the conversation by the automated chatbot, but also gives the customer the option to shift and talk to a real live agent whenever they're needed, so they don't feel that they're confined in a conversation. We're also seeing a shift from a reactive to a proactive type of conversation and engagement, where the business, whenever they see a delay, let's say in your shipping order, then they're proactively reaching out to the customer to let them know, rather than waiting for the customer to come and complain. Another shift that we're seeing is that a lot of the conversations in the past were keyword driven. So you would have to text a specific keyword to the business to receive a response. A lot of businesses now are adopting NLP, where they're reading the user messages, analyzing the intents, and responding back with the customer to that conversation with the customer to provide more real-time answers. We're also seeing some movement where in the past there were mainly three silos within an organization. You had the marketing department, IT and operations, and contact center. And really, we're seeing that all these segments are now converging and intersecting, where a single conversation can touch on marketing, operations, and contact center with the same consumer within the same channel and conversation. And it really brings us to focus more on the actual conversation with the user, where it's more connected, it's more integrated, and it's really, the enterprises have to be ready to address a customer's concern or question in any of these areas. As these intersecting circles get closer to each other, we see that area where there's convergence is getting bigger and bigger. So that also adds a more important aspect to that connected channel. Next on, we're going to talk a little bit about the explosion of the rich messaging channels around us. We've seen RCS explode in Latin America, where coverage is growing rapidly. We're seeing Apple Business Chat. We're seeing Google Business Messages, where they're really focusing on the experience and the entry points that the user are coming in to talk to the enterprise, whether it's from Maps, Search, or any other place in the device. We're seeing a lot of emphasis and push on verified communications, whether it's verified SMS or verified calling, where trust is a key factor in that conversation with the enterprise, where you know who you're talking to from an enterprise perspective. It's been verified, so to avoid spam and unwanted calls coming in. Of course, we see a lot of engagement with WhatsApp and how WhatsApp has become a very dominant channel in certain regions for communicating with enterprises. And also we see Facebook Messenger from a social aspect, where a lot of enterprises that have a social presence are focusing on these social channels. With the explosion of these channels, we're also seeing an explosion of entry points. These entry points are really exploding in a way that every channel now is adding more and more entry points, so that customers really can reach out from anywhere to that enterprise and start talking to the enterprise, whether it's a question, whether it's a concern, whether they want to speak to a live agent or not. It's really, and we're not seeing that slow down. More and more entry points are being added to that. And enterprises really need to be ready to talk to their customers from wherever entry point that they're coming from and start engaging there. The next part really is building that connected customer journey. And we see that the journey is now spanning across the customer's life cycle, from discovery acquisition to purchase and conversion to the care and support, and then finally to the retention and loyalty of that customer. We see all these different touch points are digital touch points throughout the journey of the customer's life cycle within an enterprise. And each one of these plays a very important role in addressing a different type of concern. But as you see, it's flowing from one point to the other. So really a conversation with the customer can start by an acquisition, move to a purchase and conversion, then care and support, and then finally retention and loyalty, all on the same channel with that customer. We're going to touch a little bit on these, and here is an example with Google Business Messages, where it is an acquisition tool. The customer is looking for a utility company. They start the chat with the utility company through a search result that came up, and they start really an inquiry. Well, how can we help you? And they're looking to acquire that customer. The customer is looking to get a quote. The enterprise is collecting more information about that, and then that conversation evolves from just now an acquisition to providing and onboarding the purchase and making sure that here in this case the customer wanted to speak to a live agent, so the conversation automatically gets upgraded to speak with that live agent within the same context of the conversation. So the customer is not leaving the messaging channel to go somewhere else to pick up that conversation. And really, RCS is another example where the conversation here is a proactive outreach, where the brand sent a message out saying, hey, the Samsung phone is coming out, are you ready to upgrade? And this is a marketing push where the customer is looking to upgrade the device. They receive a message. This use case was very successful with the RCS functionality that was shown, because it really makes it a lot easier for customers to tap and engage with that customer, with that enterprise, rather than figuring out what the right keyword is to discover that. And then with WhatsApp, here, this is engaging with Hyundai as an example, where the customer is sending a message to Hyundai saying that they want to send they started the conversation with hi, and then here they're looking at whether you want to book and the service appointment, repair order, copy you can send you. So here really the conversation with WhatsApp is really taking the booking of the appointment to a very one-on-one type of engagement with the customer. And then for sending repair orders, the customer wants to see what's the next step. They can get the repair order delivered in the messaging conversation. So all these digital channels really emphasize on the experience the customer is getting without having to leave that conversation medium, and engage with that brand in multiple different topics, whether they're getting their invoice, their order, their repair order, and completing, in some channels, completing even the payment within the messaging channel itself. And then here is another example of customer retention with Apple Business Chat, where really now you're a customer, you have a question, or you're engaging with here another example with O2 in the UK, where the bill went a little bit higher, so it's being proactive to talk about that bill and chat with the enterprise and chat with the customer service agent to see what happened, why did they get a bill so high, and they're explaining the charges here so that the customer is not getting a bill shock. And then they're giving the options really to the customer to manage their bills and have more information rather than just call and complain to say, why is my bill so high? This is a really good example of proactive engagement where the enterprise realized something was wrong, they reached out to the customer, and they started communicating. And then the final really part of the presentation today is, how do you build a connected journey with any of these rich channels? It's really starting with, you need to understand and know where your customers are. Are they coming to you through search? Are they coming through maps? Or are they coming through your website? Are they clicking on chat now? What is the medium that the customers are coming from? And knowing that allows you to make a decision on what channels to invest in. The next step is really, once you know where your customers are coming from, start simple. Start with a use case that has that addresses a lot of the concerns and a lot of the questions that are coming and inquiries that are coming. If you're going to wait to start with a full-on life cycle journey in the first launch, it will take a lot of time and a lot of effort to get that started. So start simple, and then from there, iterate, measure, optimize your engagement, and then add on more use cases as your engagement starts to grow with your customers. It really gives you a quick competitive edge in your market and against some other competitors. And really, customers are looking for these enterprises and brands that are engaging, that are there, that are delivering those richer experiences to them, so that they start engaging with them in a more natural way. I ran through this real quick and hoping that if there are any questions, James, that they will pop up. I know we're crunched a little bit on time.
Ramy, thank you very much. No, there are actually no questions, but what I would say for me, what really hit home there on your presentation is keep it simple. Yeah. Absolutely keep it simple. There are so many mobile engagement channels out there. And over the years, you've been in the industry long enough, as have I. And what really strikes me is people talk about one channel replacing another. And I think we're seeing today with A2P SMS, RCS, other chat apps out there, push messaging, they all have their role to play. So that's truly important, and that presentation brought that home to me. So no questions from the audience. So thank you very much indeed, Ramy, and thank you indeed also to imimobile for being one of our sponsors of the event, because having sponsors means we're able to make this content, these live events, available to absolutely everyone, not just our members. So thank you. Thanks, Ramy. Thanks, Mobile. All the best. Bye.